All right, welcome everybody to the latest Meet the Sponsors. Today we have a guest who I've known, I don't know, about 15 years. I think I first met Wing Lamb in around 2005 when I was with Core. I went to a Supercross race and I was in the VIP hospitality suite, and Wahoo's Fish Taco was there. And there was a guy behind the counter serving tacos, and I started chatting with him. I thought it was hired help, but it ended up being the co-founder of Wahoo's, Wing Lamb. Wing, how you doing, bud?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, awesome. Wahoo's had an interesting year last year with COVID. Now, I know before COVID, you had over 60 stores, 1,500 employees. You had your best year ever. And then last month, or last year, I guess, in 2021, you and I were guest speakers at Vanguard University.
Yep.
And you said something to me at that time, which blew me away. You said in 2 days, you went from having record sales to down 80% or 85%, I think you said.
85.
Holy cow, what happened?
Well, it's funny is we were not funny, but we went to a concert at the Forum. A friend of mine flew in, knock on wood, he's passed away. Malcolm Campbell, they used to be the head of Spin magazine, flew out from New York. And everybody gave themselves 2 hours to drive from Orange County to the Forum because, the concert, we want to get there, by 6 o'clock for dinner before we go to the concert at 8 o'clock. We found ourselves all in LA within 45 minutes. And we're like, what the hell?
Yeah, no traffic.
There's no traffic. I mean, nothing. It was like driving at 2 a.m. And then Malcolm said, hey, I'm here too. We're all early. So, well, let's all get together. So we get together and he said, oh my God, it's the strangest thing. I just flew in from New York and there's literally 20 people on an airplane that fits, I don't know, 300 people. I have no idea how many people fit on a plane. And he goes, that was weird because this is all the stuff we heard about it on TV or radio, whatever, right? So we're like, whatever. It's not going to come to Southern California, right? It's in New York, Seattle, San Francisco, but not here. And Wednesday, the governor makes the announcement, all sporting venue and all non-essential. So the word here is non-essential. And I'm like, what do you mean non-essential? So pretty much anything that you don't need was basically, like you don't have to stay open. And we're like, what do you mean? We don't have to go to work? Who's going to make who's going to pay us? So from Wednesday, the announcement came. By Friday, we literally had to furlough 85% of our staff. We were empty. It was like a ghost town. Wow. I mean, Wednesday was slow. Thursday was, but Friday it was like, oh my God, there's nobody here. And everybody's at home, because supermarkets, gas stations, whatever you call it, but hair salons, everything was like kind of like shut down. And then it was like, okay, no indoor, but you can take out. Well, who's going to take out from a restaurant, right? So the whole thing, literally everybody went off the cliff. And we're like, dude, you can't use the word non-essential. Yeah. What does that mean? We're essential to ourselves, right? So we have to deal with that. So we kind of let everybody go and we sent them all home with toilet paper, all the things that we had in the restaurant was to take it, right? Because that's the least we can do. And everybody's going to collect unemployment anyway. And then we were told it's going to last a couple of months. And you and I know what happens next.
Yeah. Right? Wow. Now here we are almost 2 years later. Yeah. Geez. But you've emerged stronger and you're kicking ass. The California Love Drop was very successful. It's a promotion you did, but also your brand ambassadors, the representatives who carried the brand forward, they continued to work for Wahoo's and people remembered Wahoo's. The thing I really like about the restaurants is there are more logos of brands in Wahoo's than any other restaurant chain, I think, in the world. Correct me if I'm wrong with that, but you go into a Wahoo's and you allow stickers, you allow branding, you allow either locals to put stickers up or representatives or athletes, brands. Why do you do that?
Basically, well, back then I didn't have a way to decorate the restaurant, right? So I put up a few because I had gone to ASR. So I had gotten some stickers. Well, this is kind of fun. I'm a kid and I like to put things, all guys like to put stickers on. And it's your way of tagging the place as your place. So once I put a few up, literally the rest is history. Everybody says, oh my God, we can put our stickers here. And I said, sure. And then the stickers turn into, I call POP, like all the signage that you see in a surf shop. That's, the foam core signs, the banners, the surfboards, the skateboards. So once I put one, the other guys goes, whoa, 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 whoa. that's my competitor. I need to put mine out. So it became kind of like a surf shop or a skate shop where you see all the brands being advertised. And I
That's
looked
really
at it
cool.
as a way for them to tag and a way to say, hey, these are our partners, you know?
And not just logos, but you'll have like Blink-182's drum set. You have, motocross bikes. You have BMX bikes hanging from the ceiling. You have athletes gear and autographed gear there. So you're a very athlete branded and sponsor branded restaurant, more so than any other restaurant I think in the world that I'm aware of.
Yeah, and I think again, going back to when we were kids, the only things you would see in a restaurant, what I call it, old memorabilia, you would see
Yeah.
baseball
John
stuff,
Wayne, right?
football stuff, right? And that's okay because those were the major sports. And nobody cared about surf skates, snowmobile, and nobody cared about that. Well, those are my customers. I said, well, I'd like to, have a place for you guys. So I'm not going to have baseball memorabilia. I'm going to have our stuff memorabilia, right? So it represented, the people that were coming in. And again, sometimes I'll go to a sports bar and I'll see some of these old baseball memorabilia. And I'm like, did you buy this? Because this guy, I'm pretty sure, has been long gone since 1980, whatever it's
Yeah.
been, right? But you still have this. And I'm not sure if he comes here all the time or if this was a one-off, like that you see the celebrity picture sign. I'm pretty sure that was like a one-time event. But that's what everybody else did. And I'm like, I want to be different. I want to like support our, tribe of a bunch of outsiders, as we call it, and now it's all mainstream. I mean, the Olympics is getting ready to start on Friday. I mean, snowboarding is probably the best part about the Olympics these days. And those are all our kids.
Now, so you said tribe. Describe to me the tribe and how you use brand ambassadors or sponsored athletes in the tribe to promote Wahoo's. Like, what does a restaurant benefit from having sponsored athletes?
Well, so here's, I guess back in the day, right? There used to be magazines. There's very few left of print publications. Back in the day, it was Beach Happy, then it was Happy, then it was Bliss. And there's a couple of other ones in the middle, right? So what we love to do is we love to feature the kids because they said, you should have an ad in here. I'm like, I don't want to put a food ad in the middle of an action sports magazine, right? But I thought, hey, if I could put the kids in, right? And I understood one thing called photo incentive, which means that all athletes in their contract have it that anything that their sponsors don't pay for, they get additional money for, i.e. if they go on a trip or they win a contest, anything that they do that's editorial. And as long as it shows the logos, and most athletes are pretty smart about having it on their shirt, their hat, their boards, to make sure that they get money from it, right? We love your pretty picture, but without the logos, you're not getting any money.
Yeah,
so
that's
I
true.
understood that. So I thought, hey, if I can run the ads with the kids and allow everybody to put all the sponsors on it, the kid could get an additional couple of $100, up to a few $1,000s from their sponsor, because this is a full page ad that I'm running. So all the kids never question my logic because everybody else told them, goes, don't worry about it. Wing is not going to give you a bunch of money, but he's paying for it, the ad. But Billabong or whoever is going to give you bumps because he's going to make sure that not only does he include the logos in, he makes sure that your board, everything is in there that you can monetize. So on average, I would say, depending on your incentive contract, you get any from a few $100 to a few thousand. There's all newfound money for doing nothing, right? And that's how I did it. And I still do it every now and then because I laugh about how easy it is to do that. But if you don't understand photo incentive, it's kind of hard to run an ad because, you got to pay the photographer, you got to pay the brand, you got to pay everybody. But if you understand what's behind it, you can do it without doing all that.
And I agree with that. I in action sports, when I was with Osiris Shoes, and we frequently gave photo incentives and we had a little program where if an athlete got the logo on the cover of a magazine, that might be a $5,000 bonus check. If the athlete got the logo on the inside cover, maybe it's $2,500. Back inside cover, another $25. Just a regular ad in the magazine or article, maybe $500. And then you always have your athletes working for you. It's really interesting. It's an incentive. I think it's what Kyle LeDuc did with Monster Energy when he first signed on to race Monster in Pro Fours. I remember seeing him at the LeDuc swap meet and he had a little grin and he's like, I just did a deal with Monster. I'm like, did you get a lot of money? He goes, nope, but I got incentives. So every time I win, they're going to pay me a big bonus. And guess what? He won the championship that year. He won almost every race he entered. So photo incentives can be a really good way for an athlete to get paid because it shows that they're working for a brand or for a sponsor. So Wing, you said something to me, and when I interviewed you for my book, the first book, Explanation of Action Sports, it came out in 2011. So it's already 11 years old. Took me a few years to write it. But when you and I sat at Wahoo's, you said something that has still to this day resonated with me. And that is, you always like to partner with strong brands and strong people because your partner can bring you into a market. If you don't skate, but you show up to the Encinitas Y with Tony Hawk, the locals will let you drop in. If you don't surf, or you do surf, but you want to surf pipeline, if you show up with Jerry Lopez, the locals will let you drop in. Showing up with a legitimate partner in an industry gives you credibility and helps you get into that industry. And that's how I think brands can use athletes in order to reach markets, by getting into those markets. You do that in action sports.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, it's like, you got to be a local and whatever that means, right? So celebrities like, NBA, they all use it. It's not anything new, but it's just on a much bigger scale. When Nike endorses you, oh my God, the money is unbelievable because they're bigger. But remember, Nike also started with very little. And if you read the stories, they'll tell you they bet their entire future on the one guy, Michael Jordan. And it worked out pretty good.
It worked out
what
good,
if Michael had gotten hurt or something and didn't work out? There goes the entire budget, right? So every now and again, I would say 99% of the time, it is a hunch. It is all the things that you want to say, instinct, whatever, and you bet the farm on it. And then again, if somebody does get in trouble or, whatever, does some stupid thing, there goes the farm again, right? But these are the risks we take. So when you are a brand ambassador and picking one, you're not only picking somebody that is obviously a good athlete, but also is not going to do anything to basically tarnish the brand, because that's what you're betting on. You got a great brand ambassador. What that means is you're going to sell a lot of product because of that, right? So you got to be, aware of it. So sometimes you may not be the best guy, but you're aware of what I call the give and the get is, right? You're getting money to represent the brand. Well, you better do a good job, right, of representing the brand. And every now and again, you got athletes that forget about it. And I'm like, what are you doing with those pair of sunglasses? Aren't you sponsored by that brand? And they're like, oh my God, right? And it doesn't happen very often, but you find people, holding one beer when they're sponsored by another, or holding one beverage when they're by another. So these are the things, it's just common sense. And, but again, sometimes when you're a little bit caught up in the moment, you forget about who your sponsors are. And I'm like, how do you forget that, right? But it happens. I'm not the first one to tell you. Over and over, I can tell you lots of guys that forgot for a split moment. But in today's environment, that split moment gets caught in social media, you're done.
Yeah, that's
true. In
the
old days, I was at a party, nobody saw it, and you got away with it.
That is
Today,
true.
you better never slip, because somebody's going to capture that image.
So what can athletes do to help Wahoos or restaurants in general get more business? It's clearly not about the logo anymore. It's about driving foot traffic into the restaurant, or perhaps giving out coupons. What are some effective ways that you use athletes and brand ambassadors to increase sales and grow the business?
Well, one of the big things that we've done is, my buddy Ron Camaro, who's a former BMX, professional rider, he helps me do a lot of this, I call social media kind of stuff. So when he, does go out to the trade show, hands out the coupons, whatever, one of the things we appreciate is when they use it, post it, right? Don't just take the free lunch, post something. I was, oh my God, I'm at Wahoo's, I'm really enjoying this, right? Because that's what drives people back, is being seen at our restaurant. So whatever that means, bring your friends, do a little posting. And we're not telling you, oh my God, jump up and down and wave the flag, but just do something, hey, as a thank you, right? All these little things help. And the other thing that I always tell all the athletes is, you've gotten here because a lot of people kind of helped you along the way. Now that you're kind of here, it's your turn to kind of pay it forward, right? And one of the ways I tell all the better guys, like for instance, Ryan Sheckler has his foundation, right? So he'll do events to give back. And that's where we come in and we partner up. So instead of, I call it giving him a taco, let me give you 100 because you're going to do an event that's going to benefit the community.
Right.
And that's another good way. So when athletes ask me for, hey, I'd love for you to sponsor me, I'm like, let's not be selfish. Let me come and help you sponsor the community event. You know, so Tony Hawk does an amazing job. All these guys, I mean, over the years, so many of them use their notoriety, their presence to further the cause. You know, so that's where I'm all about. If you're doing something to give back to the community, feel free to call me because I'll be the first guy to say, I think that's a great idea. Let's use our name. Let's use our resources to bring awareness to the cause or whatever it is that we're trying to do and give back to how we got here. And that's how the thing keeps going back, you know, going forward.
So my oldest son is 23, but I think when he was 12 or 13, over 10 years ago, Brian Deegan posted on social media, hey, if anybody knows my favorite restaurant, then you can win this autographed helmet. And it was a unique custom painted autographed helmet. And I feel bad to this day because I knew where Brian eats. And I told Cole, he texted it in and he won the helmet. And I almost feel like it was cheating a little bit. Guess where that was? That was at a Wahoo's.
Yes.
And so it was funny because when we went to Wahoo's to pick up the helmet, Brian didn't know, he didn't put two and two together that this kid named Cole was Alex's son. So when we walked in, he looked at me, he's like, wait a minute, you guys are cheating. So I know Tony Hawk did a promotion like that way back in the day, like 15 years ago. Hey, guess where I'm eating, right? And then it went viral. And that was one of the very first viral blowups that Wahoo's was able to experience. And it was one of the first ones that I knew about with restaurants.
Yeah, so what we did with Tony is Tony had a new video, and I forget the name of it right now, but it was playing in Encinitas. But the only way you could get the tickets, he kept posting on social media, is if you come to where I'm going to be. So somehow 91X in San Diego picked up and started talking about it during rush hour because it was like at 5 p.m. So basically, we did a bunch of posts through the whole week. And then at the very end, it says, come to Wahoo's and Encinitas, and the first, 100, 150 people that get here, you get a pair of tickets. And I mean, everybody started flooding, and there are, you know, Tony and I handing out tickets, right? But it was crazy. And because again, we've done so many things over the years that Tony has given back to the community more than any other skater I know. So it was great. So he goes, hey, wait, I got an idea. I'm like, let's do it, you know, because ultimately the only way they're going to get to the tickets is if they come to my store. Nice. So I'm saying, all in goes, the only thing he said, you can't tell anybody until we do the promo. Like, I'm in, you know, because that's the whole idea. And once people found out, it was this mad rush because there's, you know, the theater in Encinitas is not that big, but it was an amazing, you know, little video, and it was so much fun to do. You know?
So if athletes today, let's say racers on the call or any, you know, brand ambassadors are on the call today that want to represent Wahoo's in a similar way and drive traffic to a store through a promotion, in what states do you now have restaurants? I know half of them are in California, right?
Yeah, most of it in California. There's a few in Fresno. We got 5 stores in Vegas, which again, we're going to be doing some fun things out there pretty soon. We have about a dozen stores in Colorado. We have 1 in New Jersey. And I'm not sure these days because of the COVID thing, if our store in Hawaii reopened or not, because it's just one day it's open, one day
Hawaii's on lockdown. Yeah.
And then we have 1 store in Japan as well. We got a couple of airport locations. And if you're a sports fan, this is where it gets to be fun. We have a store inside the new crypto arena, the old Staples Center, and one at the Honda Center. Yeah.
Wow. That's right. The Honda Center. We used to eat there all the time at Ducks games.
Yeah.
Yes. So when you're looking to choose representatives to represent the brand, what's the process at Wahoo's? Is that what Ed, your brother, does? Is there a team that's involved with marketing and sponsorships, or is it just, you know, somebody approaches you, you're still a family run business, you know, how does an athlete get your attention?
Bottom line, they'll run into me at an event because literally we're talking about Supercross, right? Over a Saturday, I was there, the stadium with Monster, and they did the BMX competition there. So a bunch of the athletes there, guess who provided all the lunches for them, right? I did during, you know, the warm up and before they start the event. So I'll be doing that again coming up. So wherever I'm at, I mean, I'll probably be again, if everything works, I think the US Open is back on. Right now, I'm waiting to hear back about the Dude Tour. And I heard that I think ESPN just sold the X Games, so it might not be here this summer. It might be overseas somewhere.
Oh,
I think in
interesting.
China maybe, or Japan or whatever it is. But so wherever I'm at, that's how people see me, because I'll first, I'll introduce them, I'll take their name down. And the first thing I'm going to do, so I'm being very clear, tell me whatever you want to tell me about who you are. I'm going to call your team managers. I'm going to get the lowdown on you, whether you do what you say you think you do or not. So believe it or not, do not BS me, right? Because I'm going to call you out. So I'm going to find out who you are, where you stand within the team, where you stand within the competition, right? I'm going to know everything about you before I call you back, right? And it's not just me. I have resources. I've been friends with almost every team manager under the sun forever. And I'll talk to the judges. I know the announcers. I mean, Double D, David Duncan is a great friend of mine. I know a lot of people because I've been doing events for 30 years. So I'm going to do my homework on you, because I want to make sure that you are who you say you are, right? And that's the first thing. And then we'll go from there. It goes, hey, what makes sense? Who are your current sponsors? What maybe other sponsors, not, I want to replace them, but can add to your current, because some people have a lot of athletes today, not like 30 years ago, have, I call energy drink sponsors. 30 years ago, that didn't exist.
Right.
You might
cigarette companies back then.
Right? It was Pepsi or Coke, and that's pretty much it. And those guys didn't really give you any money, right? But today, I mean, guys are getting millions of dollars from their, beverage sponsors. But there might be an electronic sponsor. We've done some deals with car sponsors. I mean, these are people that I call outside of the industry. And I kind of joke about it, when Bethany Hamilton was the honoree at surf, the SEMA Waterman's Ball. And I'm got to say, 16 or 17 years ago, I happened to be at the event, I'm part of, organizing it. And Bethany came up to me and like, hey, I know that you're been assigned to be, quote unquote, make sure that everything was okay. If I need anything, and I joke about being a handler, right? And I said, yeah, if you need anything, let me know. And she very politely says, I got it all. I don't need any help. Rip Curl takes care of me, and I don't need anything else. I'm like, that's great, right? Well, she didn't realize at the time that Tom Warby, who now works with us, was then the head of marketing for Kawasaki USA. And I had gotten Kawasaki to donate a couple of jet skis because that was the beginning of the tow-in movement. So at the event, we had a Kawasaki jet ski for the live auction. And I think it was selling for around $17,000 or something like that. And literally Bethany walked up to me and said, you said anything. I go, yep, I said anything. And she goes, I want a jet ski. And I looked at her and goes, I think she was 14 or whatever at the time, because it was just right after the incident. And I'm like, you want a jet ski? And she looked at me and goes, I got one arm and I would love to get put into a wave.
For those who don't know, a shark bit off her other arm.
Yeah. And I said, okay. And she goes, she looked at me and goes, you okay? I goes, yes. I goes, come with me. And I walked over to the Kawasaki team that were there and I introduced her. And I said, you know what? Give me a few weeks. So a few weeks go by. Her brother, what's her brother's name now? I'll think of his name. He calls me and I'm like, you weren't kidding. I go, no, I said anything, right? A Kawasaki jet ski showed up at her front door.
Nice. So that's a really, this story is important because restaurants don't have a lot of cash to give athletes like an energy drink might. Monster Energy can write $1 million check if it really wanted to. Maybe Coca-Cola can.
Yeah.
But restaurants can't really do that. Restaurants have to offer value in other ways, whether it's through product or cross promotions or using a brand ambassador or an athlete in an advertisement, or helping that athlete through social media spread the athlete's word and message so that the athlete becomes more popular. What are ways that Wahoo's works with athletes to create value for them if perhaps you're not writing massive checks to the athletes? What are you doing in return?
Well, like I said, we won't pimp you out unless I think I can do something for you in a way where it works, right? It's got to be a win-win. And I have a laundry list of athletes over the years that I say, hey, it's great that you're doing this for my event. And I said, great. is there any other sponsors that you would like? And I'm like, okay. And,
There you
so
go.
I bring other sponsors because obviously we have beverages and whatnot. So we bring all the stuff. So the F&B part is pretty covered, food and beverage. It's easy. We'll make your event way better than it was before we came along, right? Because before, obviously, most of the events didn't have the food or the drinks or whatever, the hospitality part of the event. So we've done that. And then we got to get into, okay, hey, it'd be really cool that in our quote unquote showroom board meeting, we would have, like back in the day, literally about 10 years ago, if you could get a 70-inch TV, you're like, oh my God. And especially not only going to use it for business, but it's amazing to play videos on, right? So I would joke about it 1 year, and it's got to be again about 15 years ago, a great band that's headlining this weekend's Cali Vibe. I call it the Dirty Heads, right? Back then, they were just a startup band, and I really liked them. I had no idea if they're just going to be another, local band or end up world touring, right? But I really liked the kids, and I said, "Hey, what can we do together?" And they say, "Hey, we really like you to do, this promotion with us," which we did in Austin, Texas, for South by Southwest. So they were one of the many, I call it, local bands coming out there. They were not playing on the big stage; they were basically playing in our restaurant, right? But it was fun. And I basically said, hey, what can we do? And I said, hey, one of our partners that's helping us underwrite tonight's events is Vizio. They don't have a big budget,
Nice.
but they have these things called 70-inch TVs,
Yeah,
right?
big ass
And they
TVs.
said, hey, there's 4 of us in the band at the time, if I remember correctly. So I personally, and you can go back in time and see it on social media, I hand delivered those gigantic
nice.
70-inch TVs to each of the band members.
Nice.
And they're like, oh my God, you weren't kidding. He goes, but that's all I can do. And I hope you guys enjoy it. They're like, are you kidding me? I mean, back then, it was as much as they were getting for a gig, right? So 4 TVs, they didn't have to pay taxes on it, as far as I know, because it was all
They probably didn't report it. I'm sure
the
they didn't.
barter thing,
You
right?
didn't 1099 them, right?
No. And then Matt, who was their sound guy, found out about it. He goes, dude, what's up with that? And I'm like, sorry, Matt, it was only for the band members, but you're technically a member because you're the sound guy. So I can't get you a 70 because that's all I asked for, but how about I get you a 55? And he's like, okay, I'll
Done.
get the 55.
Nice.
So again, I just, and these are the types of things that, again, it doesn't seem on paper that it was that big of a deal. But you're talking about a band then that was basically getting $10,000 for a gig if they got that, right?
Right.
So
right.
4 TVs was a little bit more than 10 grand. So it was, a nice even, trade.
So the message is essentially get creative, learn what assets and what network a brand or a company is linked to, and perhaps the company can link an athlete to some of those resources. And in your case, you made introductions, you got TV sets, you can do a lot. You can even promote and cross promote. You like working with partners, and I know that you've worked with Monster a long time. Do you still work with a lot of Monster athletes?
I do. I think that one of the coolest, I call it, incidents in the history of the Monster athletes. There's the one athlete, is it Jake Shoeless Brown?
Oh yeah. Oh my
right?
gosh.
The one that
fell?
almost died in the mega ramp.
Yeah.
He made, as far as I know, more money by falling than he ever did with his entire career combined, because he had an incentive. And the #1 video on ESPN and social media was him
falling off the mega ramp. Yeah. He fell 4 stories. I think his shoes flew off, and Erin Bates was there. She was the announcer. She said the shoe almost hit her.
Exactly.
So imagine so hard his shoes
he walks away, and the photo incentive that he had was insane, because nobody ever figured, 1,000 views or 1 million, not gazillion views that he got. So he made more money. So he's one of the coolest guys I've ever met, because he lived to talk about it. But not only that, he got paid absolutely insane amounts of money, because nobody ever figured that who's going to get 100 million views or whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
So he did. So for every dollar, for every whatever, he made
one tough skateboarder to survive that fall. But let me ask you this then. So how does a brand mitigate the potential payout? So you don't have to pay $1 million if you don't have it, or if it's not in the budget, because someone does get a bunch of publicity. Is it in the contract? Do you limit
no.
incentives, photo incentives? No,
you don't, because at the end of the day, right? Think about the
Wow.
number of views. What did it do for Monster? I guarantee they sold more because they're like, oh my God, the guy lived. Maybe he lived
Yeah.
because he was on Monster Energy drink, right? Who knows?
Excellent.
Nobody's
Excellent.
worried about it. I mean, the owners, Hilton and Rodney, they made a ginormous chunk of change off of all of it. And nobody got hurt by it. You know,
Yeah.
again, thank God Jake was able to walk away. But I mean, that's probably a once in a lifetime deal because nobody's ever thinking that anything we ever do is going to get that many views, right?
Right.
I mean,
Right.
and we've seen plenty of surfers do crazy things, but not even close to the number of views that Jake got.
Now, are you still offering hospitality at X Games? X Games is no longer in LA. I'm kind of bummed about that. We used to watch Raleigh, which is no longer here either. But what is Wahoo doing with X Games currently?
Well, we were doing a little bit in Aspen because we do have our stores in Colorado, which again, it's a good 8 to 10 hour drive from Denver to get down to Aspen. Well, we've done a few of those. But when the X Games moved to Austin and to Minnesota, so that's what I'm waiting for right now, we were able to really help out because a lot of the athletes, turns out, a good number of them, are the better ones, are all from Southern California.
Yeah.
So I joke about it, on their wish list, they wanted something that's, you know, comforting. So the two brands that kind of came up to the top of that list, you're gonna laugh, was Sambazon for breakfast, the acai bowls.
Yeah, acai.
Wahoo's.
So I was
So
just talking about Walter Bale, the
Yeah.
VP of marketing.
yeah, so somehow we partnered with them, and we found a way to basically provide food, lunches at in the athletes lounge for all the years that we're in Austin and in Minnesota.
Nice, nice. And not only that, but when Lucas Oil had a company retreat, your wife hosted that,
Yeah.
and Wahoo's catered it.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
you do a lot more than just events, sporting events and races and X Games. You can also do corporate events. Have you ever had any brand ambassadors or representatives or athletes or team riders that have brought you into new areas outside of the events that they participate in, such as like a corporate retreat?
Yeah, you know, it's funny is, in a roundabout way, you know, whenever I travel, people are like, oh, you're the Wahoo's guy. And I'm like, okay, whatever. Yes, I am, right? So I always look at it as the fact that I'm amazed that no matter where you are in the world or in the United States, that somebody didn't think of making the event better, whatever that means, by having a better hospitality component, right?
Yeah.
So whenever I go, you know, whether it's through my ambassadors or on my own, or, you know, just out and about, I'll bump into people and I'm like, what are you guys doing with this? And the easy answer is because it's easy. But easy doesn't mean it's good, right? So I come from a place where I goes, why can't we do it better? And
Right.
the obvious answer has always been, we don't have the budget for it, or we're not in that business. We're in the business of doing cars, TV, whatever it is that we do, but we're not in the F&B. So to them, it's an afterthought, right? Well, to me, this is my business. So when I come to a trade show and I'm like, this is what you're doing as your hospitality, or this is a concert, this is what you're doing. And they were always looking at me and goes, well, this is easy, right? We looked at the menu and we goes, let's just pick the easiest, no brainer, and call it a day, right? So it's a money and it's a easiness thing, right? Why come in? Goes, well, can I come in and do it? And they look at me and goes, well, one, we don't have the budget to do it, and I said, hey, we can trade, we do what, let's get creative. How do we make this thing work? And once I do it, it changes. So then I set the bar at a different place because they're used to, you know, something much simpler, whatever that means, in the menu. And then I come in and I elevate it, and it's not rocket science what I'm doing. I'm just making it better, making it fresh, making it, and then they don't have a choice because once I set the bar, they're like, oh man, no, we can't go back, right? So, and you and I talked about it because one of my friends that I brought, Michael Brown, to the event that we went on to Fort Irwin, that's how I met him because, we happened to be up in Sonoma, and I meet him, whatever, and a couple of months later, he's voted the #1 wine in the world. And I'm
number
like,
one Pinot in the world by
crap.
Wine Spectator magazine. Yeah.
Right?
Nice.
Wine Spectator #1. And same thing. I asked him, goes, can we do something together? And he goes, we don't have a budget. He goes, you got the #1 wine in the world. We'll just trade for that. And all my friends to this day laugh about it because we came to help you out so we can all go home with like a case of wine because we couldn't buy it. I mean, there's nowhere to buy it. They didn't want to sell it to us, but by helping you serve some tacos as part of the pay, we got wine. And they all laugh about it because they're like, it was probably the most amazing trip they've ever been on, right? So it was the same as going backstage. Yes, it couldn't get you a ticket to the concert, but you got to see the concert from the stage.
You can elevate the experience. It goes
Yeah.
back to when you and I first met, it was at a Supercross race. Like I said at the beginning, you were serving the tacos and I didn't know who you were. We had never met before. I'd never seen you. You'd never seen me. It was just this nice guy. We started a conversation. Next thing you know, wow. Oh, I'm like, holy shit, this is the owner of Wahoo's. And you said later, because over the years we've talked a lot about this, you like to provide superior hospitality at events because you want to be part of the fun. You want to be part of a fun experience and you want to make the experience better. I went into the VIP hospitality because I didn't want to eat a corn dog or a hot dog or, you know, kettle corn. I wanted something nutritious, and what better than Wahoo's? And so I actually enjoyed that experience. And I can see where if a race team or an athlete that's sponsored by a restaurant chain can use that restaurant chain to enhance the experience at a track, then it makes that experience more memorable. And then all the sponsors of that particular athlete benefit because fans will remember. So with you, I'll never forget when you said you like to be part of the fun because then they will remember you while they were having fun.
Yes. And that's what happens is whatever it is that we do in our lives, surf, skate, baseball, it doesn't matter what you do. If you are able to have that most amazing game, whatever it is that you did, and then you got rewarded with something, that something becomes what you remember. So what happens is every single time you do whatever it is that you want to do, before or after, I become a part of it. Because in your head, it just becomes this, maybe I helped you surf better, maybe I didn't. But because I was attached to it, you always remember that.
Yes, absolutely.
And that's so it. I don't know how else, because I remember the first pizza I ever had. It wasn't the best, but to this day, that's the pizza, right?
That's when
the
you're
bar. Because it was after I was starving all day at the beach and I got that 150-cent slice. And I was like, oh my God, this is the best pizza ever.
Nice.
That's what happens.
Nice. So you are Chinese, but you were first raised in Brazil. You came to the United States and then you opened up a fish taco chain. That's interesting, you know?
Well,
it almost seems very contradictory, but it worked out really, really well.
So I often tell people, right, is today is actually the new Chinese Year of the Dragon.
Happy New Year.
Yeah. So my parents are full-blooded Chinese. I'm full-blooded. But luckily for me, they traveled around the world and made a quick stop for about 15 years in Brazil, which is where I was born and raised. And then they came to Southern California. So they have an amazing restaurant still on Balboa Island, the Shanghai Pine Garden. And they own the property, but they retired out of the business when we started Wahoo 30 some years ago. But they live 2 blocks away from the restaurant that they started. A couple of the families run it now. So we're down there all the time, you know, and in life, you know, I joke about it. I have now become friends with the one person that literally is responsible for us moving our entire family from Brazil to the United States. And it's because we had this, I call it event at my parents' restaurant with John Wayne at the time, which was the biggest celebrity in Orange County. So after that incident, you know, an appearance, I call it, right? We went from 20% occupancy to a 45-minute wait to get into the restaurant.
Wow.
I mean, imagine, I joke about white people in Newport Beach waiting to eat Chinese food. I'm like, are you kidding me? That doesn't happen. But it did, right? So today, Mark Zigner and I are friends and we concoct all kinds of stuff. So next week, on the 8th, I'll be at the Balboa Island Museum talking about this story of how it all happened to celebrate Chinese New Year. Cool. And I find it extremely interesting that, you know, here we are, right? And it's funny because Mark jokes about he was one of the first Jewish families in the area as well, right? So together, the Jew and the Chinese guy, you know, his mom
serving fish tacos. I love it.
And you know, so
which is a
Chinese
surfer
restaurant
from Baja.
Yeah, started, and which led years later to me saying, hey, you know, if I ever have an opportunity to do my own thing with my brothers, Ed and Minga, we're going to do this. And that's, you know, and joke about it, the rest is history. but we literally been in the restaurant business our entire lives.
Wow. Nice. So we're at the 45-minute mark already, believe it or not. Usually by now we'll open it up to Q&A, or I'll jump over to a different screen and let people chat. But any like advice in general to athletes wanting to get sponsored that we haven't covered, something I didn't think of? Is there anything in general? Because the people who will watch the recording of this and those who are on this call live with us, they're looking for brands to help them with whatever their endeavor is. For the most part, I think the attendees on the call are racers, race car drivers. So they're looking for money to help with their racing. But in the future, athletes for skateboarding, surfing, snowboarding, BMX, freestyle, anything. What advice do you have from someone who's been in the trenches, dealt with athletes? You've seen it all. You've gone to all the events. What do you see that a young or amateur athlete could be doing better to raise more money to represent brands?
I think really the big key is we know, I mean, brands, they know, we know that you want our clothing, our money, or equipment. We know that part. The big thing is what are you going to do differently that everybody else is already doing? Like, what are you going to do so that we basically have a better ROI by putting our brands, our money, our equipment on your back, right? So you really have to be able to answer that question, because the guys that are doing it differently, it doesn't mean necessarily you have to win contests. It doesn't mean anything. You just have to do a better job of representing us, right? And that's really the key. So once you do that, all the team managers are going to go do it. You got to get this kid on your team. You should have seen what he did at the trade show. You should. So if you don't have guys saying that, you should have seen him what he did. And it's nothing to do with the podium, because at an event with 100 kids, only 3 guys are going to get that podium. And odds are, let's just say 97 of you are not going to get on that podium. So what do you have to do to make it as though you're on the podium? So think in those terms, right? Because 97% of you are not going to get on that podium.
So are there alternative means? Like, can somebody use social media to create that advantage for themselves? If they're not going to be, placing at an event, are there other ways that they can promote and help?
Yeah.
And how is social? How are you guys using social? How are your brand ambassadors using social?
Exactly. So we all do it. I mean, we track everybody, and we love them to be, interesting, funny, and that's what at the end of the day is drive people to our brands, whatever that means, right? So if we see you doing a great job and we can see the uptick and we can hear in the community that, oh my God, that kid did this at the school, this kid this at the park, whatever that means, we're going to go, oh my God, what else can we do? So instead of you trying to always ask for more, you're going to end up having team managers telling you, oh my God, we got to give you more. We got to do more with you, right? And that's what you do. And that's what you want. You don't want to push. You want the team manager to come through and go, oh my God, I heard this. Right?
Got it.
And that's the deal. The referral and just things will start flowing. And all of a sudden you'll find yourself, being asked to do things. Hey, come to the autograph signing, come to the video premiere, come to the trip, do this, because we know that not only are you a good athlete, you are an amazing ambassador to our brand.
Do you think that the sporting community and events are on a rise again? Are we coming back after a couple really tough years? What are you seeing in the trenches?
I see that everybody's been itching, because it's one thing to perform in front of your friends. It's another to perform in front of 10,000 people cheering you on, because that's the thing that makes you want to get that trick, that extra height, whatever it is that you're doing, because you feed on that energy. And you can't get it from 10 people. You need 10,000, 50,000. Well, yes, you can do this, right? And you're like, it's not the smartest idea, but I'm going to try to go a little bit bigger, right? And that's what happens. You need that energy.
True. Double backflip on a motorcycle. I still will never understand that. I ride motorcycles, and even wheelies are hard for me. But I'm getting old. So George Hamill is running tech today because Tammy's still at work, but I can't see the screen. George, are there any questions in the chat room? All right. We haven't opened it yet.
Yeah, we haven't gotten any comments yet. I think we should probably open it up sometime soon here.
All right. So I'll tell you what I'm going to do, Wayne. At this point, since we only have about 10 minutes left for the total call, I'm going to jump over to a different camera. And we're going to let anybody who's on the line just chat with us and ask us questions. So bear with me one sec while I walk over, and anybody, if you have a question for Wing, jump on in right now.